The alarm on my wrist device screamed the same second the shuttle doors opened, and I stumbled out into a crowd of creatures twice my height, all turning to look at me at once. My name is Daniel Whitfield, and 30 seconds earlier, I had been asleep in my seat, dreaming about my acceptance letter to the Galactic Diplomatic Support Academy. I was supposed to be learning how to write trade agreements and translate greetings between species. Instead, I was standing on a landing platform surrounded by clawed, scaled, fanged beings who were staring at me like I had wandered into the wrong nightmare. A tall creature with silver plating across its shoulders stepped forward. Its eyes were narrow and yellow, and its voice came out low and rough. "Prey species," it said, sniffing the air near me. "Why does Prey stand on the entrance platform of the Apex Combat Academy?" I looked down at the data slip in my hand. The registration code was wrong. One number had been swapped, and instead of being sent to a school that taught negotiation and language, I had been sent to a school that trained the deadliest young hunters in the galaxy for combat, survival, and war strategy. I laughed, because it was the only thing I could do. Nobody else laughed with me. An officer with a clipped voice and 4 arms marched over, checked my documents, and confirmed the mistake instantly. "This is an administrative error," she said. "You do not belong here." "I know," I said. "Can I go home now?" "Correction requests take time to process through central registration," she replied. "Until then, you remain enrolled. Report to your assigned quarters." That was it. No apology, no urgency. Just a flat statement that I would be living among apex predators until some office, somewhere fixed a typing mistake. I was given a room with another cadet, a young Vraxil named Kresath, who had ridged skin the color of dark iron and claws that clicked against the floor when he walked. When I stepped inside, he looked up from sharpening a training blade and stared at me for a long moment. "You are joking," he said. "I wish I was," I answered. "This academy trains hunters, warriors, species built for combat since birth." He gestured at my bare hands, my dull teeth, my soft skin. "You have no claws, no venom, no armor. What exactly do you think you are going to do here?" I didn't have an answer for him. Not yet. I just set my bag down on the empty bunk and told myself that surviving 1 semester couldn't be that hard. I was wrong about how hard it would be, and right about surviving it, but neither of us knew that yet. The first morning began before sunrise, though on this world sunrise didn't mean much, since the sky stayed a dull orange color no matter the hour. A horn sounded through the dormitory halls, and cadets poured out of their rooms already dressed, already alert, already moving like their bodies had been built for exactly this purpose. I arrived at the training field 10 minutes late, sweating, my uniform still half-fastened, while 300 young predators from a dozen different worlds stood in perfect formation. The head instructor was a massive being named Osvar, a member of a species called the Korathi, built like a mountain with tusks that curved upward past his jaw. He looked at me the way someone looks at a stray animal that wandered onto a battlefield. "You are the clerical error," he said. "That's what everyone keeps calling me," I said. A ripple of amusement ran through the ranks, sharp laughter, hissing, low growls that I assumed were also laughter. Osvar didn't laugh. "Today you will complete the first evaluation," he said. "Every cadet is tested for combat instinct, physical capability, and survival response. You will complete it as well, since regulations require every enrolled student to be scored." "I don't have combat instinct," I said honestly. "I've never fought anything in my life." "Then this will be short," Osvar said, and turned away. The evaluation took place in a wide arena, with shifting terrain, rock formations that could rise and fall, water channels that filled and drained, and a series of obstacles designed to push a body past its limits. Cadets went through one at a time while instructors recorded results on floating data screens. I watched as a second cadet moved like poured liquid, striking a target dummy so fast the motion blurred, then vanishing behind cover before the recoil systems even reacted. I watched a Korathi cadet tear through a barrier obstacle using raw strength, finishing in under a minute. Every single cadet before me displayed some natural weapon, some biological advantage built over millions of years of predatory evolution. Then it was my turn. I stepped onto the field, and immediately I understood I could not do what any of them had done. I had no claws to strike with, no venom to inject, no natural armor to absorb impact. So instead of trying to imitate them, I did what I actually knew how to do. I ran. The obstacle course was built to test bursts of predatory speed and strength, short, violent explosions of effort, followed by rest, because that was how ambush hunters operated. It was not built for someone who simply kept moving without stopping. I climbed over the rock formations slower than the others, but I didn't stop climbing. I crossed the water channels clumsily, but I kept crossing. When I reached the final barrier, my arms were shaking and my lungs burned, but I pulled myself over it and collapsed on the other side, gasping, sweat pouring down my face. The arena went quiet. Osvar walked over and looked down at the data screen, then back at me. "Your speed rating is the lowest ever recorded at this academy," he said. "Your strength rating is barely above minimum threshold." "I figured," I said between breaths. "Your endurance rating," he continued, "exceeds every cadet currently enrolled, including seniors preparing for graduation." I sat up slowly. "What does that mean?" "It means," Osvar said, studying me like I was a puzzle with a missing piece, "that I do not know what you are." That evening, word spread through the academy faster than I expected. Cadets who had ignored me at breakfast suddenly wanted to know how a species with no natural weapons had outlasted predators built for exactly this kind of trial. I didn't have a clean answer. All I knew was that back on Earth, our ancestors hadn't been the fastest or the strongest animals on the plains. We survived by chasing prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animal simply couldn't run anymore, even after it had outpaced us 100 times over. We didn't win with a single powerful strike. We won by refusing to stop. Cresseth found me in our room later, still turning his training blade over in his claws. "The instructors are talking about you," he said. I noticed. "They say your kind hunted the largest predators on your homeworld to extinction, not with claws but by walking them into the ground." He studied me carefully. "Is this true?" "More or less," I said. "We're not fast. We're not strong compared to most animals. But we don't get tired the way other things do. Not really. We just keep going." Cresseth was quiet for a long moment. "That is a strange way to hunt." "It worked," I said. He almost smiled, though on his face it looked more like a grimace. "Perhaps you are not entirely useless." I decided to take that as a compliment. The weeks that followed were not easy. The academy did not slow down or adjust its training, because a mistake had landed me in the wrong place. If anything, the instructors seemed determined to see exactly how far the mistake could go before it broke. There was a trial involving simulated combat, where cadets faced off in pairs, testing reaction speed and tactical thinking. My opponent was a Shik cadet, named Vithra, fast enough that I genuinely could not track her movements with my eyes. She struck 3 times before I even registered she had moved. But the simulation wasn't only measuring speed, it measured decisions. And while Vithra relied entirely on her natural gifts, I had spent the entire match watching the terrain, noting the placement of obstacles, learning the rhythm of her attacks. On her 4th strike, I wasn't where she expected me to be, because I had used the environment to change my position half a second before she committed to her attack. It wasn't a victory built on strength. It was built on thinking 2 steps ahead, something the instructors noted with visible surprise. Vithra was furious, but even she admitted afterward that she hadn't expected a prey species to outthink her. Then there was the team exercise, 3 weeks into my accidental enrollment, where squads of 5 cadets had to navigate a simulated crisis together, solving problems that required cooperation rather than individual combat skill. Most predator species at the academy came from cultures built on strict dominance hierarchies. Every squad instinctively organized itself around whichever member was strongest, and every other member fell in line beneath that leader, often arguing about position and status before even beginning the task. My squad included Cresseth, Vithra, and 2 others from species I still struggled to pronounce correctly. When the exercise began, I didn't wait for someone to establish dominance. I just started talking, asking what everyone was good at, suggesting who should handle which part of the challenge based on their strengths, rather than their rank. It felt strange to them at first. Vithra hesitated, unused to being asked for input instead of simply being ordered. Cresseth kept glancing around, waiting for someone to challenge my authority to organize things at all, but it worked. We finished the exercise faster than any other squad that day, not because any single one of us was the strongest, but because we worked as a coordinated unit instead of a collection of individuals competing for status. Osvar reviewed the results personally. "Your squad's coordination method has no equivalent in our training doctrine," he said to me afterward. "Explain it." "We're not big on hierarchy," I said. "We work better as a team when everyone gets a say, not just whoever's biggest or fastest." "That contradicts every principle this academy is built on," Osvar said. "Maybe," I said. "But it worked." He didn't respond to that, but I noticed him writing something down, and I noticed the same exercise appearing again the following week, with new rules that allowed for shared leadership roles. Not everyone was pleased about the attention I was receiving. A senior cadet named Rathgar, a Korathi built even larger than Osvar, made it clear early on that he found my presence at the academy insulting. He was the top-ranked combat student in his class, expected to graduate at the very top of his year, and he did not appreciate a soft-skinned outsider drawing attention away from cadets who had trained for this their entire lives. He challenged me directly during an open sparring session, the kind meant for senior cadets to demonstrate technique to younger students. Instructors allowed it, mostly out of curiosity about what would happen. I told him honestly that I didn't think it was a fair matchup, and he took that as an insult rather than the truth it actually was. The match began, and within the first 10 seconds I understood exactly how outmatched I was. Rathgar was fast despite his size, and every strike he landed sent pain through my body that made it hard to think clearly. But sparring matches at the academy weren't decided by a single hit. They were decided by who could continue past the point of exhaustion, who could keep functioning when their body wanted to give up. And that, more than anything, was the one advantage I actually had. Rathgar hit hard, but he hit in short, powerful bursts, then paused to recover, the same rhythm every predator at the academy used instinctively. I couldn't match his power, so instead I focused on staying upright, staying aware, and using those brief pauses to reposition myself, instead of trying to counterattack directly. The match went on far longer than anyone expected. Rathgar's early confidence faded into visible frustration as he realized I wasn't going to simply collapse the way every instinct in his body told him prey should. By the time the instructors called the match, both of us were exhausted, but Rathgar had thrown everything he had, and I was still standing. It wasn't declared a win for me. It wasn't declared a win for him either. But something shifted in the way the other cadets looked at me after that day. Rathgar never apologized, not directly, but he stopped calling me prey species in front of others, and that felt like its own kind of victory. Kresath brought it up that night while we sat in our room, both of us nursing bruises from separate training sessions. "You should have lost that match in the first minute," he said. "I know. You did not fight like we fight. You did not strike to end the match quickly." He tilted his head, studying me the way he often did when he was working through a thought. "You fought to survive the match instead." "That's kind of the whole point of my species," I said. "We're not built to end things fast. We're built to outlast." "It is strange," he admitted, "but I no longer think it is weak." That conversation stuck with me more than any of the physical training did. Something was changing, not just in how the cadets around me saw humans, but in how the academy itself understood what combat readiness actually meant. A few weeks later, an instructor I hadn't spoken with before, an older Vraxel named Dr. Seneth who taught combat history and species evolution, requested to speak with me privately. Her office was lined with data records about extinct predator species from 100 different worlds, and she gestured for me to sit across from her desk. "I have been reviewing your homeworld's evolutionary history," she said. "Your species was once hunted by predators far larger and faster than anything human beings could compete with physically." "That's true," I said. "Every one of those predator species is now extinct," she continued. "Your species is not." "Also true." She leaned forward. "How?" I thought about it for a moment before answering honestly. We couldn't outrun them. We couldn't outfight them, one-on-one. So we didn't fight them one-on-one. We worked together, we planned ahead, we used tools, we adapted faster than they could evolve new advantages against us. Eventually, the predators that used to hunt us, either changed or disappeared, and we're still here. Dr. Seneth was quiet for a long moment, her yellow eyes studying me carefully. The classification system this academy uses divides every species into predator or prey based on physical traits: claws, speed, natural weapons, methods of attack. I noticed, I said. I don't really fit either category. No, she agreed. You do not, and I suspect that is why the instructors have struggled to properly evaluate you since your arrival. You were never meant to fit our existing categories, because your species solved the predator and prey problem differently than every species currently enrolled here. That conversation changed something in me. I had spent weeks trying to survive at an academy that wasn't built for me, trying to prove I belonged somewhere I had ended up by accident. But Dr. Seneth's words made me realize that maybe the mistake wasn't really a mistake at all. Maybe humanity had something worth teaching a school built entirely around the assumption that survival only came from claws and fangs. The final evaluation of the term was a full simulation exercise. Cadets divided into opposing teams for a multi-day survival and strategy challenge across a massive simulated terrain. It was the most difficult trial of the entire program, designed specifically to determine which cadets were ready to advance towards senior combat training. My team included Kresath, Vithra, and 3 others, facing off against a much larger opposing team that included Rathgar. The objective was simple in theory and brutal in practice: hold territory while denying the opposing team's advance, using whatever strategy each squad could devise. The opposing team relied on speed and aggression, striking hard and fast in the opening hours, overwhelming smaller resistance points across the terrain. My team took losses early, position after position falling as Rathgar's group pushed forward with overwhelming force. But speed and aggression cost energy, and energy needed to be recovered. By the second day, the opposing team's advance had slowed considerably, their early advantage spent on an assault that had covered too much ground too quickly. That was when my team made our move. We hadn't spent the first day trying to match their aggression. We had spent it conserving strength, mapping the terrain, and identifying exactly where their advance would eventually stall. When it did, we advanced with a slower, steadier push, one that didn't require bursts of speed or overwhelming strength, just consistent, coordinated movement that never stopped. Rathgar's team, exhausted from their early assault, struggled to mount an effective response. By the time the simulation ended, my squad had reclaimed enough territory to secure the highest overall score of the entire evaluation. Osvar addressed the full academy afterward, standing before 300 cadets with the results displayed on a massive screen behind him. This year's evaluation produced an unexpected outcome, he said. The highest performing squad achieved victory not through superior individual combat ability, but through coordinated endurance strategy, a method not currently taught within this academy's curriculum. He looked directly at me as he said it. Effective immediately, endurance-based strategy and team coordination will be incorporated into future training programs, based on principles demonstrated this term by Cadet Daniel Whitfield. The room was silent for a moment before Kresath, standing beside me, let out a low growling sound that I had learned over the past months meant approval rather than aggression. Vithra nodded once in my direction, the closest thing to a genuine compliment I had received from her all term. Rathgar approached me afterward, his expression unreadable. "You did not fight like a predator," he said. "No," I agreed. "I didn't. And yet you did not lose like prey either." I didn't have an answer for that, so I just nodded, and he walked away without saying anything else. I understood that was as close to respect as he was capable of showing. A few days later, the correction to my original registration finally arrived, an official notice confirming that my transfer back to the Diplomatic Support Academy had been processed and would take effect at the start of the next term. I stared at the notice for a long time, standing in the same landing platform where I had first arrived, confused and out of place. Kresath found me there, arms crossed, watching the shuttles come and go. "You are leaving," he said. It wasn't a question. "The mistake got fixed," I said. "I'm supposed to be at the other academy, the one that actually makes sense for someone like me. Do you want to leave?" I thought about it honestly, maybe for the first time since arriving. I don't know anymore. Dr. Seneth had said something to me the day before that I hadn't been able to shake. She said the academy had spent its entire history training cadets to classify the galaxy into predator and prey, hunter and hunted, strong and weak. And in one term, a single accidental enrollment had shown 300 cadets that survival wasn't only about which category you fit into. Sometimes it was about refusing to be sorted into either one at all. I looked at the transfer notice again, then folded it and put it into my pocket. "I think I'm going to request to stay," I said, "at least for one more term." Kresath studied me for a long moment, then made that low growling sound again. "The instructors will not know what to make of that decision," he said. "They didn't know what to make of me on the first day either," I said. "I think they're getting used to it." He almost smiled again, that same strange expression that still didn't look quite natural on his face, but no longer looked forced either. "What do your kind call it?" he asked. "When many of you work together instead of following one strongest leader, there must be a word for it." I thought about the answer for a moment, watching the orange sky stretch out over an academy built for predators that had never expected someone like me to walk through its doors. "We call it civilization," I said. "Look it up sometime. It's a longer story than you'd expect." He nodded slowly, filing the word away, the way he filed away every piece of information he found useful, and together, we walked back toward the training grounds, toward a term that no longer felt like an accident at all.